What is up, everybody? This is Joe McCall, Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. Got a good friend, Sean McCloskey, with me on the line here. And we're going to be talking about the importance of having a vision for your business. And this is something you've probably not thought of before, but it's really, really important. We all know we need to have a vision for our life, and we've crafted goals for our life and what we want our life to look like. But none of us have really set apart time to say, what do I want my business to look like? And does my business actually fit in the vision for my life as well, right? And so Sean has an event coming up in a few weeks called the Business Vision Workshop. And I've got a link for it right here, businessvisionworkshop.com. This isn't a pitch for the workshop. I want to interview Sean here on this podcast and talk to him about it. But in case you don't listen to this podcast all the way through to the end, I want to make sure you go here right now, businessvisionworkshop.com. It's a workshop that's coming up in March, about a couple months from as we're recording this right now, here in the beautiful, warm, sunny vacation state of St. Louis, Missouri. Right?
That's right.
Bring your flip-flops and your Hawaiian shirt and you'll feel right at home. What are the dates, Sean?
March 12th through 14th in St. Louis, where it's average temperature is 84 degrees all year long.
Yep. And we're going to go to the beach and go surfing during the breaks.
That's right. In the river right across from where the event is.
I put it right here. Businessvisionworkshop.com, March 12th through 14th. And I don't get anything right now from giving you that link. I just want you all to go check it out and see what it's about. And we're going to be talking about this on this podcast right now. Businessvisionworkshop.com, March 12th through 14th. All right. So real quick, guys, if you listen to this on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or Apple, Google Play or whatever, right? I really appreciate it. And I want to ask you to subscribe to the show, leave a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. If you listen to this, let us know what you like about the show, even what you don't like. And leave us a review, subscribe. We'd really, really appreciate it. That helps us with the rankings. I think I have, Sean, 528 reviews right now on Apple Podcasts, which is crazy. Not as much as like some of the guys at Bigger Pockets or whatnot. They have an awesome show, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I love seeing those reviews. I read every one of them. I appreciate you guys doing that. I've also been seeing in the last 6 months or so an increase in the rankings in Apple Podcasts. So I appreciate that as well. This is a labor of love. I really love doing this. And all I ask is you subscribe to the podcast, leave a review. Also, as we're recording this, I'm broadcasting this live right now on YouTube and Facebook. And so if you want to, like here, we got a comment here from Daniel. Hey, Joe McCall, what's going on? And so you can type in comments in Facebook and YouTube as you're watching this live right now, and I will pop them up here. So as you're watching this, just say hi, tell us where you're from. And if you've got any questions for Shawnee Mac right here, his name is Sean McCloskey, but he typed in Shawnee Mac because he thought it'd be funny.
I didn't know that was going to show up on the screen.
So, but if you got any questions about this, type them in the comments of Facebook and YouTube, and I'll pop them up here and show them to you. And we can talk. We can ask Sean any question that's clean and not rude and polite. We'll ask.
Yeah, I doubt all of that.
In fact, knowing some of the friends that we have, Sean, there's probably someone here that's going to type in a question that would be a little inappropriate.
But slightly.
Whatever.
Won't be the first time.
Yeah. See, like Bobby, this is nice. Hi, guys. That's good. So those kinds of questions you can ask. All right. Sean, how you doing, man? We go back. I mean, let me give you a little introduction to Sean too, guys. Sean was, I was getting started in real estate, going to the local real estate clubs. I think at the time it was called the WIN Group.
Yeah. Wealth Improvement Network
here in St. Louis. And Sean was teaching, we was doing a ton of short sales, doing a ton of short sales, and was starting to teach this stuff. And back then there was a website called flippinghomes.com. It was kind of like it was the Bigger Pockets back then, back in the 1900s. I guess it wasn't the 1900s, was it? It was the early 2000s.
Yep. It was early 2000s.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a popular site. And so Sean became friends with the guys who ran that website, flippinghomes.com. And he started going around the country teaching people how to do short sales. And he also had a brokerage. And I was trying to do real estate. My wife got her license, and we hung our license with Sean and his brokerage. And he tells the story a lot of all these realtors that he had under him and how much work it was causing. And then he decided to stop doing the brokerage, and he was worried about his clients that were under him in that brokerage, paying for further coaching. And I was one of those ones that stuck around. I was like, yeah, heck yeah, I'll pay you whatever it was at the time to be able to go to your office and get some coaching and help and partner with you on deals. And so Sean's been a friend and a coach for me since 2007.
Yeah, you were my first batch of the fresh meat that I started working with back then. It's crazy to think that was 13 years ago, isn't it?
13 years ago. Wow.
Man.
I remember like coming down to your office and I was like, oh man, this guy has an office in a strip mall. This guy must be successful.
He must be. Of course, you don't realize how much I was paying for all that garbage that I didn't need back then.
No,
which I'll talk about today.
That's another story I'm sure you'll talk about at the workshop. Like, your overhead was crazy and you had to make like 30, 40 grand a month, which actually isn't that bad now, but like you had to make 30 something grand a month just to pay the bills and break even,
Yep.
And it's
that was 13 years ago when I was only 20 years old. So, it's different now, but you were only, I think, 45 back then. So, that might not have seemed bad for you. Joe and I should mention have this relationship where we just sling poop at each other all the time and just have a lot of fun doing it. So
I've been so nice.
I know, but I know it's coming, so I had to just start it early. I love you, man.
Yeah. So, so I've known Sean for a long time. When I first wanted to, he helped me do some deals. He helped me buy some bad deals that I lost a lot of money on too. But we won't talk about that. No, but he helped me do some deals. I'm just kidding. Kind of.
There's a little truth to every joke, though. So here's the deal. So back then it was 2007, man. And if you remember what happened in 2007, we had this market crash and everything changed literally overnight when the mortgage industry failed and everything. I mean, we all had here I was just a new coach back then. And we all had some major growing pains to learn through. And thank God at the time I was doing short sales, because that got better actually as the market crashed. But it didn't happen like that for everybody. And properties were taking longer to sell. And you combine that with the fact that I wasn't designing my business the way that I wanted to design it. I was designing it the way other people told me to design it. So you combine high expenses and high overhead with business kind of going down a little bit, and all of these factors, man. Oh my gosh, it's been a crazy ride since that time. But hopefully today we'll get to some stuff that I'll share with you guys so that when the next crash happens, you're not so concerned about it, because it will happen.
Yeah. And it was a very interesting time in the market. So fast forward a few years, I quit my job, still stay in touch with Sean. And we've been good friends. We actually live just 5 minutes apart from each other now. He lives down the street. And I was going to say something else, like making fun of, but anyway, I'll stop that. So, so now we're good friends, and he's doing this workshop about creating a vision for your business. And I'm glad you're here, Sean.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cool. All right. So give a little backdrop. Why are you doing this event, and what's it going to be all about?
All right. So the reality is that when I speak all over the country, and when I go ask entrepreneurs, specifically real estate investors, but this is all entrepreneurs, I'll ask them, have you ever done a business plan for your business? And almost every hand in the room has gone up. Yeah, I've done a business plan at some point. And I say, okay, have you got a life plan? And very few hands go up because they're so busy trying to build the business that they say, well, I'll worry about life stuff later, because one day when I make a bunch of money, then I'll have a great life. And then I ask, okay, do you have just a business plan, or how did you craft the business plan? Was it crafted with the idea of making the most money, or did it stem from your own business vision? So as corny as that sounds, very few people do this. I was in a room of 200 people, 2 weeks ago. in Ohio. And I said, how many of you have ever gone through a business vision process where you're making your decisions, not just from the perspective of how much makes the most money, that's important, but from the things that really energize you and the things that kind of get you up out of bed versus you having to get up out of bed. And, and I asked, it's so interesting. As I was researching this more and more over the years, Inc. magazine did a study just last year that said that 85% of people either running their own business or in corporate America today who have jobs don't like what they're doing. 85%. And then you mix that up with the statistic that says that, here we are just in February now, and all these people did these New Year's resolutions for their business and personal life and so on. And then I read another study by them that said 93% of those New Year's resolutions aren't accomplished. They're given up on by the end of January. So there's a very big difference between a business plan and a business vision. And so that's what I teach now. So I have the privilege today of coaching. Joe, you're in one of my coaching and mastermind groups.
Yeah, I forgot to talk about that. Leadership Boardroom is the main thing you're doing now, which is it's an amazing group of entrepreneurs and business people. And this is a process we go through all the time in that group. And so I'm so excited about this because we're taking now, Sean's going to be taking what we get in the little small mastermind group and is actually going to be doing it now to several hundred people in one room, which is it's going to be awesome. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Which actually is not very easy to do. So I've done this in a one-on-one setting because I have 3 groups of 15 people that I coach, and we run masterminds together with a few times a year. And so Joe's in group 1, for example. And so when I'm sitting down with somebody one-on-one, I extract from them typically what their vision is. And it's most oftentimes their vision is very, very different than what they're actually doing today. And there's pieces of it that are usually in alignment. But a lot of times when I say, what would you do if you could do anything on a daily basis? What would juice you the most? And then I'll follow that up with, once that's answered and figured out, I'll follow that up with what percentage of your time right now do you spend doing those things that you say drive you and get you out of bed versus doing the other things that you just have to do because they're a part of business. The answer is usually between 5 and 10%. If people respond to me, only 5 to 10% of my time is spent doing what I'm really passionate about. And the other 90 or 95% is doing all the garbage that I have to do, or at least I think I have to do. And that's just not true. It's just that when we're basing, I like to base all my decisions today off of my business vision. And when I don't, I'm in for some trouble, because when I start evaluating what am I going to do next based on what I think is going to make the most money, that's a great filter to have, but it should never be the first filter, because the first filter should be the business vision. And then I should say, okay, is this something that's a profitable idea? Should it be thrown down the list, a few ideas? Because most investors, by the way, especially real estate investors, are trying to build 5, 6, 10 different businesses at once. And then believe me when I say this, not at first anyway, but listen, wholesaling, rehabbing, lease options, short sales, rentals, apartments, all of these things are different businesses in and of themselves. They require different marketing arms and different customer service and different ways to get customers and all the things that goes into getting a business. But people say, well, I'm in the real estate business. And then they try to lump all 10 of those things in with one. And I'll tell you, those are the people who are the least successful, actually. But they're making decisions based off, well, this is going to make me the most long-term money, and this is going to make me the most short-term money. And I have to do these because these deals are falling in my laps. And that's not necessarily true. It's what most people believe. But by believing that, they become sort of the person who's pretty good at lots of things, and they're the master of nothing. And their finances typically show it.
I can still relate. And this is something that I think it's important everybody to go through this process at least once a year.
Yeah.
It's because it's so easy as an entrepreneur. I mean, they say the definition of an entrepreneur is somebody that finds something that works, does it for a little bit, stops doing it, and then does something else.
That's right.
That's me to a T. Or they work super hard just so they don't have to work 40 hours a week. They work 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40 hours a week, right?
That's right. You know what, Joe? Check this out. I polled my audience a couple of weeks ago when I was in Ohio. There was roughly 200 people in the room. And I said, how many of you in the audience here work 40 hours a week or more? Every hand went up except for 2 or 3 hands out of 200. So 1% of people, 2% of people weren't working more than 40. I said, how about 50 hours a week or more? Most of the hands still stayed up. I said 60 hours a week or more. it was crazy how many hands were still up. And I said, look, here's a perfect example of you guys, where did you decide that you need to work 50, 60 hours a week? I know it's a popular message on Facebook and everywhere else today. You got all these national gurus who are saying, one guy even has the motto, work your face off, which is stupid. But it's a popular message to say the only way to get ahead is to grind and to work your face off and to do all these things. That's not true. And who gave you that vision in the first place? I've informed them that vision didn't even come from, where did the 40-hour work week even come from? It didn't come from you. It's 100 years old. And back when it was introduced, it was not common knowledge at all. Henry Ford came up with the 40-hour work week. He said, look, we have this plant. We're making vehicles. We're selling more vehicles than we can make by people coming in and working. And so we need to really double or triple the impact our plant is making, but we don't have the money to go build a second and third plant. So what did he do? He said, let's break up a 24-hour day into 3 shifts, 8 hours each. And we're never going to get people to work, on weekends perhaps, but we can get them to work 3 different shifts, 8 hours each. And the 40-hour work week was born. And here we are. We embrace this today as the minimum that you should work without feeling lazy, right? And if you don't work at least 40 hours, of course, it even takes 36 to 40 hours a week to get benefits at a job. And so that's embraced now as the norm. But whose vision are you living? Are you living yours? Or are you living Henry Ford's from 100 friggin' years ago? You don't have to do that. I coach people now. Jason Roberts, for example, he's got a multi-million-dollar business. He works from 10 to 2 every day, 5 days a week, and that's it. He doesn't go in till 10, and he knows he has to be finished by 2 because he has to be meeting his gym partner at 2:30.
He's also really lazy.
Which is the norm to call a guy like that lazy,
Well, he is, but he's
effectively lazy.
Mutual friend.
That's right. So you could call him lazy, or you could call him effective, and he knows where his priorities are, and he knows what his vision looks like, and so on. And it's not easy to do, but everybody can do it. Just nobody does it.
That's so crazy. Like, I'm so sick of the hustle that we hear about all the time now. It's a badge of honor that I'm hustling.
It's rampant.
These guys that are hustling, all they're doing all day, I don't know what else they're doing. They're just on their phone taking pictures of themselves and posting on Instagram and Facebook.
This is what got me so pumped. So if you remember back when I first started coaching, one of the guys in our first group that really embraced me teaching him how to run a business was a guy named Jeremy. And Jeremy made right at $500,000 his first year in business as my coaching student. So I was pretty proud of that. Until second year, he got a divorce. And it's like, whoa, what's going on here? What happened? Now, the divorce wasn't only because he was working all the time, but I'll tell you that it didn't help at all. When a guy is focused more on his business than he is on his own family and his wife, that can't lead to anything good. And so I can't tell you how many business owners that I talk to that are married and their wife feels like they're second place, or even women with their men, their spouse feels like they're second place, that the business always comes first and they put their family and everything else second. And so today I happen to be fairly passionate about trying to help people avoid that, because that's the last thing I wanted to do, is be a coach who helped somebody have a great business at the expense of everything else. Matter of fact, to the point where I almost quit coaching back then. But in order for me to be able to coach effectively, I had to say, well, wait a second, let's take a hard look at who Jeremy's learning from. He's learning from me. And I was going down the same path. And who did I learned that from? I got my vision from the coach teaching me, a guy named Chris Kirshner years ago, who, by the way, also made more money than anybody I've ever seen ever, and lost his family. His wife called him up on the day that he made more money than he ever made in his life, $950,000 he made in an hour. And his wife called him up and said, I'm leaving you. I'm taking our son with us. He doesn't know you. He doesn't want a relationship with you. All you do is work. You don't take days off anymore. And, he's like, wait a minute, I'm doing this all for you. And she's like, really? Did you ask us what we want? So that hustle message is garbage. And I don't mind hustling. I don't want to hustle 80 hours a week. So when I work today, I'm very laser focused and I'm very effective, but I work during the hours that make sense according to my vision. If I were making decisions just based on what's going to make me the most money, however, which is what most people do, you'll go and you'll maybe misalign what you're working with what you say is important to you. And you're going to have problems. It may not show up right now, but you'll have problems eventually. And so, younger people hear this and they go, no, you don't understand. I'll just do this for a little while. Look, if you're going to do it, you want to give yourself a challenge. Anybody can build a business working 80 hours a week. You want to have a great challenge. do it in a way that honors everything that you want in life, not just your ability to go work hard and hustle more than anybody else. That's just ridiculous.
You took, was it a month or two off a year ago? Didn't you
This
go on an
last
RV
year,
trip?
I took more than 3 months off, closer to 4, but that's because we took multiple trips. But yeah, one of them was a 4.5-week RV trip that we took all over the country.
That's awesome.
And you know, honestly, man, I got some of that from you. I watched you do that, where you took a few months and went up and down the coast of California and the West Coast and all that stuff. Then you went to Prague and all this. So, you know, that, which brings up another important point about living your vision. You will become the vision of the people that you surround yourself with, because that's what's possible to you.
Good point.
When I saw Joe do it a few years ago, I was like, wait a second, why can't I do this? And I thought, I don't know how to do that yet. But I wrote it down in my business vision. I said, I'm going to create my business in a way that allows me to leave for a month at a time and not work while I'm gone. And that's exactly what we did last year. We took almost 5 weeks, went to Yellowstone and Utah, and we saw Glacier National Park and all these really amazing places the entire time. Now, here's what most entrepreneurs do. They schedule something like that, and then guess what? They work the whole time they're gone. That's not a trip.
Yeah.
It's working remotely, right? On this trip, now, I wrote this in my business vision. I didn't know how I was going to pull it off when I wrote it down a few years ago, but I began to build my business in a way that could do that. And sure enough, in the 4.5, 5 weeks or whatever that we were gone on our trip, took 2 phone calls. That's it. No email, no nothing else. 2 business phone calls while we were gone. And if I'm being honest, it's because my coaching students are such good friends of mine. They were in a dilemma, and I wanted to answer the call. It's not because I had to. They knew I was gone. So, but that takes some prep. It takes getting things out of your head in writing, which is why I'm inviting people to come to the workshop. We're going to spend 3 days doing this in the room. That's why it's a workshop. It's not just a seminar. And, you know, as simple as this sounds, there's a whole process to it. I will tell you, the 99.9% of even, quote, successful business owners I know have never done this before, not this way. And, but you got to get it out of your head. You got to get it in writing, man.
You got to get it in writing. And I will add too, with this going to Europe stuff, I wanted to work because I would go crazy if I didn't do any work all day. But I still only worked a couple, 3 hours a day max.
Yep.
And the cool thing about traveling and going overseas, if anybody's thinking about it, is because of the time zone difference, you're forced. You can only work like 2 or 3 hours a day because you only have that little window.
Yep.
And it really forces you to, and this is what the whole point of all of this. It forces you to ask bigger questions. Like, all right, this is what I want my life to look like. And how can I, because most of us have, and we've talked about this a lot, you know, most of us have our business or our job in the center of everything. And then our life fits in around that.
Yes.
What if we reverse it, have our vision for our life here in the center, and then design a business that fits that fills in the gaps, right? And that's what this workshop is really about. So that's what I did. I said, all right, I want to go, we homeschool. Well, we want to travel with our kids and see the world. How can we do that? Well, we want to homeschool our kids, right? So that's kind of important if you want to travel for 3-4 months at a time. And then I want a business where I can manage it from a cell phone and from a laptop with internet connection, right? I don't want a bunch of paperwork and filing cabinets and all of that stuff. So I started thinking differently about the kinds of deals, the kind of business that I could do that would allow me to do that. And it all started with the vision.
Yep.
So important.
And, you know, you bring up a good point about the personal side of things. We're not going to focus on that at this particular event. We're going to talk about all business at this one because, I mean, they're completely 2 separate really events, really. But this one, we're going to focus on business. You know, how do you build that? And there's really 4 steps to build. Can I go into these 4 steps real quick? There's really 4 steps to doing this. And so if I could sum up the 3 full days in 4 steps, it would be this. First step is always create the vision, get it out of your head. And I know that sounds simple, but this is going to take us the whole first day to do it, because when I do this with people, I found that there's actually 3 types of people. I started looking at how some larger corporations build the visions for their company. I looked into Disney, and this blew my mind. Disney has 3 pieces of their entire organization that you work in, and you only work in one of the 3. So you are either, the first category is called an Imagineer. That's what Disney calls it. It's basically a visionary. You know, these are the people who think of really, really great ideas. They think of new rides for the theme park. They think of ways to make the theme park better, movie stuff, characters. They think of the dresses and how the characters are, and they come up with scripts, all these fun things, right? And when they're finished, they hand it off to department number 2. Department number 2 is called the engineers. And, I know you've got some engineering background, Joe. So these are the people who figure out, okay, how do we take the idea that the engineering department just gave us, and how they design that so that it can be implemented. They ask questions like, okay, that's great, Imagineer, that you have an idea for a roller coaster that will fly through the theme park suspended from nothing, but is that humanly possible? And so they say yes to certain things. They say no to certain things. If something's a yes, then they design it and go from there. When they're done designing it, they hand that idea. Remember, now it's gone from the Imagineering to the engineering. It's passed there. Then they hand it to the implementation department, which is the third department. And that department is what implements the ideas that have already been pre-screened and figured out how they're going to do it. And the implementers are the actors in the movies, or the actresses in the movies. They are the people who work in the theme parks. They're the people who are actually building the roller coaster. Those are the implementers, right? And when you look at that and you see how Disney does it, I mean, there's a reason they have 80,000 employees today. I was just sharing this a couple weeks ago when I spoke, and one of the guys in the audience says, he jumps up and he goes, I worked at Disney for 20 years. And he goes, it's exactly like that. And he goes, not everybody at Disney even knows which department they work in, but they work in a department. And he said, what's crazy about that? He said, the departments were never, ever, ever allowed to talk to each other. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Why is that? And he goes, well, think about this for a second. If I want you to imagine that you're having a meeting and there's 10 Imagineers in the room and there are 10 engineers in the room, and all the Imagineers are coming up with all their crazy ideas, let's do this. What would the engineers be doing while the Imagineers are trying to come up with their ideas? What do you think?
They'll be throwing, you can't do that. That's stupid.
Yeah. Or how are we going to pull that off or whatever? So now what would happen if the Imagineers heard this from the engineers, 10, 15, 20 times during a meeting? What would happen to their creativity after a little while?
Well, they'd get discouraged, and it would stifle their creativity.
And yet we do this in our business every day, especially the smaller real estate investor who's kind of running the whole ship by themselves, right? Because there's times when it's appropriate to be a dreamer, and there's times when it's appropriate to figure out how we're going to pull it off. And then there's times where it's appropriate to pull it off. And what I found is every person usually calls one of these 3 places home for them. It's where they excel the most, right? So the people who are visionaries usually don't implement much at all, right? They're the dreamers who people are like, okay, you got great ideas, but you never get anything done, right? And the people who are the great designers, the great engineers, they can have good ideas, but that's not their area of gifting. They can usually figure out how to pull stuff off, right? And every person. So, when this guy was sharing with me, he said they're not allowed to talk to each other. It's grounds for termination at Disney.
Really?
So the Imagineers are not allowed to share any ideas with the engineering department until they have themselves crafted up the ideas and said, this is really what we want it to look like. Then they hand it off. And so this is really important. That's why it takes us a full day to go through vision, because quite frankly, some people, I can ask them some questions and it comes right out of them. The visionaries, man, if I ask the right questions, they can answer them appropriately. We get their vision done in an hour or 2. But somebody who is an engineer or an implementer, I have to go a little bit deeper, ask a little bit different questions, and we're going to do some really cool stuff as a group. And I'm actually bringing in 12 other speakers to co-teach this with me. So I'm bringing in the visionary who says, this is how I do it. I'm bringing in an engineer who says, this is how I do it. And an implementer who says, this is what I needed help with, and so on. And that's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it right there in a workshop. But that's only step 1. That's just getting out of your head what would be really cool, which doesn't really get you anywhere, right? So after you're done with step number 1, you got to move on to step number 2. Step number 2 is, I call it know thyself.
Know thyself?
Know thyself. And it sounds cheesy, but what I mean by that is you need to know who you are and where you best fit. Know thyself incorporates you, and it incorporates anybody who's on your team, or if you don't have a team right now, who you would want on your team. If you could have anybody on your team, it means knowing who you are, making sure you're in the right seat on the right bus. For example, there's every year you see all these crazy people on American Idol, right? And they have this crazy dream. It's like, I'm going to be a singer, and, they're passionate about it, which, by the way, the worst advice you can give somebody: follow your passion. That's just what you should do. No, what if you suck at your passion? Have you seen the first episode of American Idol every year?
Yeah.
Most of them suck. They're horrible at their passion. They're not going to make any money at it, but they're passionate about it. That's called a hobby. In order to turn that into a business, it's got to have 4 components to it, which I won't go into all the details right now. But if you guys want, look up, when we get off this call, look up a word called Ikigai, Ikagai. Look it up on YouTube or just in Google Images, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You've got to incorporate your business into, yes, what you love, which is what you're passionate about. It's got to be what the world needs. You got to be able to make money at it, right? And you got to be actually really good at it. You can't just be passionate and not be good at it. Otherwise, you don't have a business. And so all of those are the components of knowing thyself. And we actually use, there's one personality profiling tool that we use from a company called Humanlytics. And I'm actually having Humanlytics come out to the event to teach about a 3-hour segment. That's how important this is. But it's basically a personality profiling test and system. It's one of only 2 in the world that are EEOC compliant, which means it's one of only 2 in the world that you can legally hire and legally fire people because it's so accurate. For those of you that have heard of like DISC tests and strengths finders and all that, those are good tools, but you cannot hire and fire with them. You will get sued and you will lose. This one you can hire and fire with legally because it's that effective. I think they said it was 99.6% accurate. So what that means is I need to know myself well enough 2 ways. I can take personality profiles. I can decide some of that myself. And the third way is I need to hear from others what I'm really good at. And so we use predictive index. We use a process called the unique genius zone. And we ask other people, what are we good at? So that we can build a business around what we're good at. So for example, Joe, I know, you are really, really good at technology. You're one of the best I know in that department. You know how to, every time I have a technological question, I can call Joe. He answers the question. He knows exactly where to go. He loves that. And he uses technology in his business for a lot of what he does. Now, what Joe doesn't love, and he can do, you can do sales, but you don't necessarily love the sales part of your business. But you've put people in place to help you with this. And so if I was to put Joe, for example, in a sales position where that's what he did 8 hours a day, he might be able to do it for a short period of time. But eventually, you're going to get burned out. Eventually, you're going to go, man, even if you're making a lot of money, you're not going to be fulfilled. And you're going to have this struggle where it's like, I don't want to quit. And this is where many entrepreneurs are today. I can't quit what I'm doing because it makes really good money. I'm not fulfilled by it anymore, or maybe never even was, but I can't stop doing it because it's lucrative. Or the opposite of that, by the way, is I keep trying to do these things that I'm not good at, by the way, and it's not working. And I don't know why it's not working, because it's working for Joe and Henry and Sarah over here. Why can't I just be as smart as them? It may not be your area of gifting. And so you need to know yourself and know your team well enough to know how to put people in the right seats, on the right bus, in the right place. When you are, here's what I will tell you. There's no more grinding. Work doesn't feel like work. When you are doing what you are built to do, you don't even feel like you work anymore, which is the beautiful thing about it. I have my business today designed in a way I literally only have to work 3 days a month. That's all the obligations I have to my business. Now, most months I work more than 3 days out of choice because I love it. I don't feel like I'm working anymore. I get to coach high-level entrepreneurs. I get to work with them, help them strategize and figure out how to fix their problems. And I'd like to think over the years I've gotten at least decent at it, right? Or at least that's the feedback I get. And so I've built a business around that because that's what I love doing the most. I am passionate about it. The world needs it. It can make money and all those things. But when I do it, I don't feel like I'm working. And because of that, whether I work 3 days this month or the whole month, I love every second of it. But the point of that is my business vision says I don't have to operate at that high level, 14 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, which is what most entrepreneurs have to work to run their business.
Yeah.
I've been yapping. Does this make sense? Oh,
that's really good. And one person's visions may not be your vision either as well, right? Like
100%.
Because hold on, I just lost my page here. Here you are. Because I've tried this so many times. I see something that somebody else is doing and I think, oh man, that's awesome. That's cool. And then I go out and I try to implement it and do it myself and I realize, oh man, that sucks. I'm not good at that.
Yes.
It's because I wasn't clear on what my vision is. And you do an exercise that's really good where I wanted to ask you about this, and then I want you to talk about what we're covering on the other couple of days. By the way, I'm going to be here at the workshop. This is a workshop that I'm going to be at businessvisionworkshop.com, March 12th through 14th. It's going to be here in St. Louis. And I think didn't you ask me to speak, or maybe you didn't. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
No, are you speaking? No, of course I did.
Yes. Right, I think I am speaking. I
forget. Yeah. And so we actually have, we have 12 different speakers coming in for this. And the first time I said that, somebody goes, oh, let me guess, they're all going to be like, it's a big pitch-a-thon. No. They're selling stuff the whole time. No, how we're doing this, I'm having, my company's called Leadership Boardroom, where I coach high-level business owners around the country. A lot of them are national speakers. Some people have larger coaching programs around the country. They are all minimum 6-figure earners. A lot of them are 7, 8-figure earners. They are all coming in to co-teach this event for me on their own dime. They're paying for their own flights, their own hotel. None of them are being paid, and none of them are allowed to pitch. And you might think, why would they do that? Well, because I have taken 11 out of 12 of them I have personally taken through this process, and they have benefited from it. And so they're passionate enough about the results they've gotten that they're dying to share it with you guys too. So they're coming out of the goodness of their hearts, and they want to make an impact too. The 12th person I should mention has not gone through this process, but he's my mentor or one of them. And I have spent the last couple of years coaching with this guy. So I'm actually going through his process, which is slightly different than mine, both still very effective. But to give you an idea who he is, the International Department of Defense is him for wisdom on how to run the Department of Defense. So that gives you an idea of the caliber of people that are going to be there. It's really good stuff.
Well, good. All right. So at the workshop, one of the things you have everybody do is, like, if your business burnt down completely and you had to start from scratch, money wasn't an object, wasn't a concern, what would you do? Talk about that question and that exercise that you
well, okay. So the reason we started doing that, Joe, you were with me when I discovered that process. Joe and I were in a meeting one time in North Carolina, right? Mm-hmm. And we were with a guy named Larry Goins, who I love to death. Some of you probably know him. He's a national speaker. He's just a brilliant guy. And his right hand in his business is named Candace. And Candace is unbelievable too, for very different reasons than Larry. But Larry is very much a visionary. Candace is sort of a mixture between the engineer and the implementer. She's really an implementer. She implements everything, but she's great at overseeing the operation too. And so we were having a conversation with them about vision. They were doing a ridiculous amount of business, but it was all being done, if I remember correctly. Actually, they're speaking at the event too. If I remember correctly, they had, what was it, Joe? Like 13, 14 different businesses that they were basically running.
I don't remember the number, but it was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the challenge that we were there to help them with, and Joe came with me along with another guy named Ron Phillips, so that we could help Larry and Candace. The challenge they had was, man, we're just working so hard. We're working a lot of hours. We're working so hard, and things aren't going bad, but we can't really get off this hamster wheel. And what do we do? And so we were looking at everything, and we were having a hard time figuring out how to help them, because quite frankly, everything was going pretty good, but they weren't happy. They weren't fulfilled. They were working way too many hours. They're worn out. They're exhausted. And it's like, how do you fix this? Well, collectively the room decided, well, if that's the case, you can try to hire everything out to your heart's content, but that's not always the solution. They tried that. And then they had some incompetent employees, and people just didn't do it the same way. So we finally decided they have too much going on. Something's got to go. Like, you can't be the best of the best of the best at 14 different companies. Certainly not when you're doing two things. Not when you're growing all 14 at once. And the second caveat is not when you're the owner operator of all of these at once, right? So people hear this all the time. They go, well, Richard Branson has 86 companies. Yeah, he's not the owner operator of them. He might invest in them. He might go to board meetings once a year, but he's not operating in them every single day. And Candace and Larry were operating in these 14 businesses every single day. And so we thought, well, something's got to go. Well, then the question came up of what's got to go? And you might feel this in your own business. If you're too busy, I will tell you, you're either ineffective in your scheduling or you're working on too much. And it's probably a combination of both. But they were effective. They just had too much going on. So it's like, what do we cut? well, we can't cut this piece of the business because they were all real estate related. You know, I got a coaching business. I sell courses. We do events. I flip houses. I flip these kinds of houses. I have a rental portfolio. We have a hard money lending business. All these different businesses that are businesses in and of themselves. And they go, well, we don't want to cut anything because, you know, when we have a RIA business, and the RIA helps to fund the funding company. So when we do hard money loans through the RIA, and you know, we sometimes we able to sell courses through the radio show, and we able to get coaching students by traveling around the country speaking and all these things. We don't want to give up any of it. And it's like, okay, well, if you do rehabs, there's times when you need kitchen sinks. So maybe you should go open a Home Depot too. You know, that doesn't make any sense. Why do you need everything that you have to sustain what you have? And it's like, they couldn't get rid of anything because now there's like, think about it for a second. The visionary kept clashing with the engineer. It's like, okay, we know we need to do something different, be smaller, but the engineer's going, but then you're going to have to fire your staff. Then I love these people. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get rid of this thing. I worked long and hard on creating these courses and all it's like, okay, wait, hold on a second. Let's do this. I want you to imagine that you are burning everything down. Everything that you have right now is burned to the ground. It's gone. You have no staff. There is no Candace. There is, you know, and for each of them, I said, Larry, there is no Candace. Candace, there is no Larry. I said, I want you guys to burn it all to the ground. You have nothing. No courses, no travel schedule, nothing. What would you create?
And no expenses either. Like,
yeah,
from scratch.
That was the important caveat to this, because the first thing Larry did when I said this is like, we got to generate some revenue. And I said, hold on a second. That's the engineer for trying to figure out how am I going to make money. Let's stay as a visionary for just a second. Let's burn it down. But I'm going to give you this caveat. Let's pretend like finances are not a challenge. Now, you're not wealthy beyond all means, but let's just pretend like your expenses are paid. You're totally fine. Nothing bad's going to happen anytime soon. What would you create then? And he was like, wow, I've never thought of it like that. And he said, really, I would do 3 things. He said, one, I would, really 4 things, but 3 of them are only the things he did. He said, I love teaching.
It only took him a few seconds to come up.
Yes. Yeah. He goes, I would teach. I love teaching. I love seeing the success of my students. I really get a kick out of this. Like, I get a drive that kind of, you know, gets him up and going. And I said, okay, so you would teach. And I said, what else? And he goes, well, I would still do deals. And I said, okay, what else? And I don't remember what the third thing was at the moment, but it was a third thing. Oh, it was his wife's hard money lending business.
Yes.
He said, I will still have her run the hard money lending business. She loves it. He goes, but I just wouldn't actively be a part of it. I would just be sort of an advisor to her, and she could run that business. I mean, if you're saying I could do anything I want, that's what I would do. And I said, well, interesting. Let's describe those a little bit further. I said, tell me about how you would teach. He goes, that's just the problem. Now, here what he just did. As soon as he said that's the problem, he switched from imagineer to engineer. He started figuring out how he's going to teach now. And he started thinking about how often he has to be on the road and all that, which, by the way, at the time he was speaking 50 weeks a year on the road, traveling 50 weeks a year, in addition to the other 13 or whatever businesses he had going on. And I said, no, remember, your speaking career burned to the ground. Now you're basically starting over from scratch as a real estate teacher. How would you teach your students? And he goes, wow. He goes, well, this isn't possible, but, and I go, look, thank you, engineer, but we don't need to hear from you yet. I'm talking to the visionary. What would you do if you could do anything? And he goes, honestly, I would still teach, but I would only teach maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and all of them would come to my office here in North Carolina. And I was like, awesome. So we wrote that down. And he started instantly thinking, how am I going to pull that off? And he didn't know. So then he stopped again. So I had to stop the conversation, re-get it going again. You know what I mean? And but eventually he just blurted all these things out. And was like, okay, now we can build a business around this. So now we move on to step 3 and 4. So if you remember, step 1 was get the vision out of your head. That's what we just did with Larry. Step 2 is know thyself and know thy team. So there's work that needs to be done there, which we may not have time to go over today. And then step 3 is, okay, where are you now? How does where you are right now look compared to this vision that you created? And for some of you, there's only little minor tweaks that need to be made. For some of you, it's major overhauls. And Larry was due for a pretty major overhaul. Now, he was doing a lot of things right. So I'm not knocking Larry or his business at all. It just wasn't fulfilling him. and he was working his face off, right? And so it's like, okay, what needs to change if I take a snapshot of what his business looks like today and I compare that to this new simple thing that he created? How does it look compared to that? And it was drastically different. So we have to start to come up with a plan, which is, by the way, step number 4: create the plan and implement. And here's what I'll tell you. Larry was in a position of some uncertainty, would probably be a great word to describe it, on how to make decisions and so forth before we got to that meeting. How did he feel when we were finished with this process, Joe? Do you remember how he...
the relief, just like a huge weight was lifted. He felt like it's actually possible. And when he figured out what he wanted, then we looked at his numbers and said, well, do you still need that? Can you cut that out? Do you need that person? Do you need this department? And everything just became so much more clear. And it was a huge relief. You could literally feel it, in the room.
You could see his shoulders go down. He kind of started breathing again. He wasn't so tense. Yep. And he had been like that for a really long time. And what happened now, if you remember, Candace is the implementer in his office. And so Larry's usually the visionary, although he was having a hard time being a visionary because he kept switching back and forth to the engineer. But Candace usually implements all of these things. And so we had a problem at the meeting, if you remember. Joe and I and Ron were there to meet these Larry and Candace on a Thursday and Friday. And the problem was Candace was going out of town for a vacation that she was much needed. Yeah. And she was leaving Sunday night. So she wasn't going to be there the whole next week. So what did Larry do, Joe?
Oh, well, she didn't think that he would be able to pull any of it off and do any of these things. And she was stressed out that he was going to... Well, it turned out like he actually did. Well, you tell a story better than I do.
Well, I mean, he was so excited about where he was at now that he went in Monday. By Monday, all the new decisions were made, and he made all the changes that he needed to make. And by the way, it didn't require firing everyone in his office. There was a couple people that had to go. They weren't pulling their weight, but Larry felt really connected to them, so he didn't want to let them go and all these things. But when he started to see, this person doesn't even fit the vision of what I'm trying to accomplish here, it doesn't mean I don't love them. It means they can't work for me anymore because they don't fit and they're not doing the job. And so he went in, he did have to let a couple people go, but the rest of the people, he just restructured a little bit, got them in the right roles, in the right bus, on the right seat. And he implemented the entire thing on Monday. The whole thing was implemented by the time Candace got back from vacation a week later. That doesn't mean they didn't have some growing problems in the process. They had some new decisions that needed to be made. And with that came some new challenges. But the fact of the matter is everything changed in an afternoon. And his confidence went up. His sense of security went way up. His certainty went through the roof. And he was able to make decisions for the first time with authority that he hadn't been able to make in a long time.
Well, he was also profitable too.
Well, yeah. So 6 months from that, his expenses went down. I don't remember the number, but it was more than 6 figures a month. And so just imagine that if the only thing, and this was a guy who was already a pretty high income earner anyway, but if the only thing he did out of the meeting was reduce his expenses by $100,000 a month, that's $1.2 million a year. That if he only makes the same amount of money, but reduces expenses, he just made a $1.2 million raise. Right. Yeah. And so, this is no small thing. Here's what I'll tell you. If there's any time in your business where you're hesitating making a decision, I will tell you why. Either you haven't consulted your business vision or your business vision is not crystal clear. And so if you've ever felt like that, that's why I'm saying get your bus to this event, because that's what we're doing for 3 full days. My goal is to take you through the process. I'm going to do a 3-step process, rinse and repeat over and over. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to come out and I'm going to teach a module. Second thing I'm going to do, like Larry and Candace are going to be there. They're going to share exactly how they made these decisions. Second thing I'm going to do after I teach the module is I'm going to bring up the speaker that best represents how they pulled off that module that I just taught, and they're going to share their story. And then the third step of that is then now we're going to turn it into a workshop so that you guys in the room can do it exactly how we just taught and described it. And then I've got a slew of people there that have gone through the process. A lot of my leadership boardroom members are going to be there to help. I have volunteers coming out the yin yang going to be there to help other people in the audience who need to go through this. And we've got something really, really special going up. So they're going to be walking around helping you, but it's going to be a workshop. So you're going to finish that little section 1, then we're going to move on to section 2 and do the same thing. We're going to rinse and repeat that process about a dozen times with the dozen speakers that we have. And at the end of the 3rd day, you walk out with your stuff done. Now you can implement so that you're not trying to do all of that and be the same person while you're doing it. That's the whole purpose of the event.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I really am. I'm going to be there participating. I'm not just going to be hanging out in the back of the room making fun of Sean and texting him while he's talking.
But you can do that too, you know.
I probably will, actually.
I know you will.
Make sure your phone's not on you. And I'll be late too, by the way.
Of course you will be to everything.
I'll be late, but that's all right. Don't wait for me. So this is really going to be good, guys. There's nobody else doing this right now. And this is going to be super important. It's not going to be just Sean up there teaching the whole time. It's going to be Sean teaching a little bit of.
Hey, why you got to say that so harshly? Like that would be a bad thing.
That would be pretty bad. All day for 3 days.
That would drive me nuts, actually.
But it's going to be so cool because it's like breaking it up into sections. Sean's going to be teaching, going to get somebody up there talking about it. And then you're going to have an opportunity to actually implement what we just talked about, right? And so bring a couple, 3, 4 pens with you, pencils, and because you're going to be doing a lot of writing and thinking. And it's really good. You could do this virtually online, break it up into course, but there's something special about coming to an event where you're setting aside the time, clearing the distractions, turning your phone off, and you're in a room and you're just like, all right. And this is really cool because, I've done this before, and every time I do it, I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that, or that's a great idea. Or it's always good to go back and like look at your business, look at your life. Is it where you want it to be? And one thing I was thinking about as we were talking about this, it's not like you have to make $1 million to be happy and to be successful.
Well, you do if your expenses are $990. Which is also another aspect of vision. It's like some people just say, I want to make more and make more and make more. And as they make more, their expenses go up. That's what happened to me. It's like I was making more money than I ever thought possible when I started coaching 13 years ago. I didn't get to keep a lot of it.
Yeah.
And by the way, every month those expenses came in, whether or not I made that much money. So, it was great on the months that I made money, but you know how this real estate business is. You can go a month or 2 or 3 without doing a deal sometimes. Yeah. And when I go 3 months without doing a deal at $3,000-$4,000 a month, which is what my expenses were, I'm now $100,000 in the hole. Mm-hmm. And so all that money I made 4 months ago sounds great, but it's gone. That was not in my vision, by the way. Yeah. That was what I was taught that I had to put in place to have a business. And so you're right. Most people don't need as much money as they thought they once did when their vision becomes crystal clear. And we'll show you that as well. And I'm not putting limits on the amount of money that you can or should make. Make as much as you can. That's great. What I'm suggesting is don't alter your own business vision as a result of what you think is going to gain you the most money. When it fits these things I'm talking about, you'll make more than you ever thought possible, and you'll actually enjoy the process. And you'll be doing it with people that you really enjoy being around versus taking on a customer, for example, that you can't stand taking on, but you feel like you have to because you need the dough. That sucks. And everybody's done it. And everybody usually learns from it after they do it too many times. But, my goal is to help you learn from all these mistakes that all 12 of these people have made so that you don't have to make the same ones. You come right out the gate. If you've been in business for a long time, we're going to show you how to make the tweaks. If you're just starting out, we're going to show you how to build it right from the start. That way you don't have to experience some of these things that we've experienced. When I say business vision, last thing, and then I didn't interrupt you so long. When I say business vision, even the students that I take on in my leadership boardroom groups, they go through a filter process, and it's all based on my vision. I put up 3 columns on a board when I was doing my vision for who I wanted in my groups. And I said, okay, on the left column, I'm going to write down, people that I think would be awful to be in my groups. And in the middle, I'm going to write down people who would just be okay. What characteristics would they have if they were just okay? Then on the right, I put who would be the people that I would love to have in my groups that I would probably coach even if they weren't paying me. That's how much I would love it. And when I built this, I only accepted people who were in that third category, people that I loved. My biggest criteria for that was I thought, I do one-on-one sessions with students where they fly out and spend the day with me. And I thought, would I rather them stay at my home if I had the choice, if they were coming to town, or would I rather them get a hotel? And if I could answer, I would rather them get a hotel, they're not going to be in the third column because I'm only hanging out with them or helping them because they're paying me. So now I literally have a business where I get to hang out with people that I love. They're very close friends of mine. We go deep in their challenges, which is what I like. That may not be your vision, but that's what I like. I get to help them overcome these challenges. I get paid very, very well for doing it. And I love every minute of it. So you can have that too. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about which deals to go after, which one. You have a vision of what deals you want to go after. But all of us, when we do marketing for deals, for example, you get a deal and you go, I don't really want to do this, but I'm slow right now. And guess what you do? You take on the crappy deal. You wish you never take it on. You break even at it at best, or maybe even lose a little money. And all the time that you wasted on that is time that you could have been spending on what you loved. But if you don't have that criteria nailed down, it ain't going to happen. Yeah. Because business owners don't know how to say no. All they do is say yes to opportunity. They don't know how to say no. So your vision helps you say no to the things that don't fit.
Oh, that's so good. I'm thinking of that book, The Pumpkin Plan, too. And that would be a good book if you're coming to this event to maybe read in advance. The whole idea of simplifying everything. Most of us, we're taking on way too much. We need to prune away and cut away at the things that, and that's what you're going to find out at this workshop. You know, you're not going to come here thinking, all right, what can I add on to my life? It's going to be mainly just like, what can I cut off? What can help me focus on where I'm most profitable, where I enjoy my business the most? It's going to be good. I'm excited about it. Vision Workshop, businessvisionworkshop.com.
Can I add one comment to that? That is partially true. However, some people have not said yes to certain things because of the expectation of their peers. And what I mean by that is I've coached a lot of people that wanted to go in a certain direction, but their spouse or their business partner or their parents told them that's a stupid idea. And it really is their vision. And it really is something that could be profitable for them, but they're listening to the advice of other people. And so they never add that thing that they really want to do because they're scared. Scared of losing love from people they care about, or scared of being judged, or scared that it won't work, or whatever else. So it is appropriate to say yes to the things that fit. But in doing so, you know, Larry was saying yes to everything. That's why he had 14 businesses going on, right? So there's a good thing about saying yes to the things that fit, but it's also equally, if not more powerful, saying no to the things that don't, so that you have space for the things that are a heck yeah.
That's good. Yeah, excellent. By the way, here, Tom posted this on Facebook. Sean, I love that black area, Les Paul.
It's my guitar wall.
Is that the real guitar you have up there?
That is actually a Guild Bluesbird, which I bought from my guitar hero, a guy who used to play for the band The Refreshments years ago. But it looks like a Les Paul, but it's a Guild.
It's so cool. Funny. I was thinking, Sean has a cool background in his office. Look at mine. It's a mess. I got books. And he's got guitar.
Well, here, perfect idea, man. This was all a part of my vision that I wrote down. When I wrote all this down, I didn't have any of this stuff, but one of my aspects of my vision, I should say, is I have a place in my home where once a month we could have literally an open mic night at my house. So we do this about once every 4-6 weeks at my house, and we have like 20, 30 professional musicians from all around St. Louis, and we have open mic night here at my home. It's an absolute blast. When I wrote that down, I didn't have any of this stuff, nor did I know how I was going to get it. But now all the musicians come over, they plug in all my gear. I've got really high-end boutique amps and drums and full PA system here. It sounds like a bar in here when we're playing. But you've been over here for it. It's a lot of fun. And
I'm friends
that was something I wrote down and didn't think it was possible. And guess what? Just a couple years later, we made it happen.
I'm friends with your neighbors as well. And
oh yeah, we don't need to talk about
that. Brian said, hey, this is great stuff. Will there be show notes posted on YouTube? Yes. So this will be on YouTube. You can go to realestateinvestingmastery.com as well to get a transcript of this, the show notes, and all the links that we talked about. And
for those of you, real quick, for those of you that end up coming to the workshop, we have a nice big manual that we're going to be providing everybody, and we're going to be doing all of our work right there in the manual.
Yeah.
So you won't really need to bring anything with you at all, but yourself. Now here's one more thing interesting, real quick, because I was just talking to a lady about this 2 days ago, And she said, God, this sounds like the most amazing thing. Like, I want to be a part of this really bad. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to get somebody to watch my kids. And I was like, look what you're doing right now. You went from visionary to engineer, Imagineer to engineer in 2 seconds. I said, look, you don't need to decide how that's going to happen yet. Here's what you do first. Just vision for what you want comes first. If you say, because I guarantee, I told her, I said, look, if she lived in Ohio too, by the way, I said, I guarantee if you had to leave your kids for 3 days to go pick up a check from the lottery winnings for $10 million, but you had to leave for 3 days, would you do it? She goes, yeah. I said, how would you do that? You have kids at home. She goes, I'd figure out a way. And I said, that's the same way it is with everything. If you want something bad enough, if your vision says it, you will figure out the way. Now, I'm not suggesting that my event is that. I just told her, I said, look, answer the question first. Do I want to come or do I not? If you want to come, you will figure out the way after you've made the decision. But when you're trying to decide how you're going to pull it off while you're making the decision, that's where the fuzziness comes from. That's what Larry was struggling with. He couldn't make a decision because I don't know how I'm going to pull off the decision. Make the decision first. The way will come.
Yeah. Very good. Cool. I'm going to be there. I'm looking forward to this event. How much does it cost, by the way? Business Vision Workshop.
$4 million.
$4 million.
I got a price to where 2 people can come for $250 each. You're not going to find a cheaper event than this. We're not pitching the entire time. I don't have selling speakers. I kept it as low as I possibly could keep it to get people to eliminate any excuses to come. So it's really 1 ticket for $397, and you can get 2 tickets at $100. So it's $497 for 2 people. Split that up between the 2 of you. It's $250 each. And
it will fill up. It will sell out.
For sure.
You've already sold half of it, more than half, right?
It seats 400. I already have 200 seats sold, and none of my marketing hits until tomorrow. So to give you an idea,
it will sell out yet. This podcast is just going out, but you're also speaking at another 2 or 3 live events.
Yes,
and
I'm actually really worried about this right now because I've never sold one out this fast before, which means that there's definitely a need for this. It's resonating with people, so it will sell out for sure. If you want to do it. If not, probably not going to be able to do it. So.
Yep. Cool. Businessvisionworkshop.com. Go check it out. Hey, thanks, Sean.
Thanks, man.
I'm glad you were able to come here and do this podcast with me. Appreciate it. You're a good friend.
Thanks for letting me share, man.
Most of the time.
I love you in spite of your mean jokes to me.
Come on. That's nothing compared to what you do to me.
Oh, man.
All right.
Just so you guys know, when Joe goes out of town, before I had really fast internet because we live out in the country, I used to go to Joe's office, and I used to use his office while he was out of town. So I always would make jokes about what I did to his chair while he was gone.
Well, let's just say, like, I sprayed my chair down with bleach after he told me that. I took it outside with a power washer. It still smells funny.
Oh my gosh! Too much.
Right. Gotta go. Businessvisionworkshop.com.
Yes.
Thanks, Sean. Bye-bye.
See you soon, man.